You might have seen it once, and you might have seen it a million times. Some people swear by it, and others think it's little more than background noise. How did this film from 1999 manage to stay relevant 26 years later?
Has got something to do with a girl named Marla Singer.
It does so by exploring the many themes prevalent throughout it. Through its characters, it talks about us as people. It talks about society, commercialism, capitalism, and how people really aren't anything more than just numbers. People get treated like shit, bullied by their coworkers. They may hate their coworkers. They get paid horribly. They might hate their boss. Whatever the reason may be, people will eventually rebel. And sometimes that ends up manifesting itself in a harmful way, which we do see. And this isn't just for the workplace, this could be everywhere. The protagonist, Jack, Sebastian, Tyler, whatever you want to call him, he's meant to be relatable. He's a white collar office worker. He works in a cubicle usually. He doesn't really talk to his coworkers. He puts up with his boss. He doesn't really have many friends. He doesn't have a romantic interest. So for the antisocial people out there, myself included, that does that definitely scores some points. He lives a somewhat materialistic lifestyle, which he is aware of. He buys things for his apartment, and, well, there's not really use for them other than to show off. He says, oh, well, you're nothing if you don't have this yin yang table or this $600 coffee maker from Japan. You've got to buy the on-brand coffee beans that cost $20. You've got to buy all this useless shit for no reason to appeal to people that don't care about you. They don't care about you because you're not dying, which he finds out after he goes to a support group. Jack, with no other outlets really, latches on to this, as this is the only thing he has. As he later says in the film, people don't listen to you unless you're dying. They want to feel better about themselves. So, well, what else are they going to do? It might make them feel like they elevated their status, like they should feel better about themselves. They're in a support group. Everybody's helping each other out, everybody's listening, everybody's being supportive, kind, thoughtful, caring. Normally friends would bridge the gap here, but Jack doesn't have that, so this is the closest next thing. In fact, the closest thing he really does have for friends, or single-serving friends, a term he comes up with on his own, for passengers that he shares a single ride with, hence the term single-serving, like the food they give you in airplanes. Only meant for one consumption. The crux of the matter is that Jack isn't very, interesting. He's just basic. Apart from his job, which he tells people about, which they do initially have interest in. Oh wow, you investigate car crashes or some shit. Yeah, there's there's six figures of car. Nobody gives a fuck apart from his job, okay? Because it is interesting to see that. But there's nothing about him as a person. He doesn't say, oh well, I like gardening. I like exercising. I like to read. He doesn't say any of this shit. He just goes to work, comes home, and tries to sleep. He doesn't get to sleep, but he tries to. Why can't he sleep? Maybe because of his job. He could be putting too much of himself into it. He might not have any friends, which is why he goes to the support groups, which is why he's able to sleep. There could be many different reasons for why, or there could be none at all. Remember, he's meant to be relatable, and sometimes there's not a reason for why things happen. They just do. That's one of the main reasons I like Fight Club. It's realistic. It shows how one choice can lead to another. Jack can't sleep, so he goes to see a doctor who doesn't really give him any medication at all. So he says, I'm in pain, Doc. And Doc says, oh well, you should go check these places out. These guys are in actual pain. So if he never went to go get a consult, then he would have never went to that support group, met Marla, maybe even came up with Tyler in the first place. None of it would have ever happened if not for that one choice before it. This happens in life all the time, every single day. Not to mention the topics discussed. Tyler endears himself to the viewer. He talks about many different topics that they can relate with. He does things they can relate with. He comes across as charismatic, but kind. He offers Jack a place to stay without even really knowing him. He, again, rebels against society. At first, it's harmless, like selling the soap back to people. Eventually, though, it does become malicious, and for 99% of viewers, well, they're going to say, oh, well, you should have stopped here. But there's always going to be that 1% that say, oh, well, you shouldn't have stopped. For example, at the end of Project Mayhem, whenever they detonate the charges around the buildings, well, nobody was hurt except for the credit bureaus, Nobody was in the buildings. They made sure that there was nobody in the buildings. So it's not to say that they don't care about people. In fact, people that's the reason they're doing it in the first place, right? To set everyone back to zero, to not have a number above your head dictating what you can and cannot do, what you can and cannot buy, how you are meant to live because you made a shitty choice. You signed a loan without a cosigner or some shit, and it's the next 10 years of your life. You went to college and you got some student loans and you're not even paying on the principal. You're paying on the fucking interest. So your original loan isn't even going down. In fact, it's actually increasing, and there's nothing you can do about it because of your job. So, yes, there's a lot of relatable themes. Pointing a gun at someone, fucking detonating buildings, that's not really relatable, okay, but the message is. And the fact that people eventually do lash out, they do eventually hurt people they may or may not care about, that does happen too. And that's one of the many reasons why Fight Club is still culturally relevant today. It's got the laid-back, solitary people like Jack. It's got the brash, uncaring people like Marla. And you wouldn't think they'd really make a fit together, but apparently they do. Maybe opposites do attract. And you do have the mentally impaired in one way or another. Like Jack and Tyler, Jack inventing Tyler. There's even some theories out there that say Tyler was the actual real one the whole time, and that since, we never learn a name for the narrator apart from Tyler, that, well, it's actually Tyler, I'll go into that later. There's a great many theories about this film, and it's not really surprising to see why, because in a lot of ways, it's ambiguous. It's meant to be, but when it comes off heavy-handed like that, it just encourages fans to come up with theories inside their head. Some of which do gain traction. For example, I think somebody said that Marla was the only real person on the film because of how she reacted to certain things or just the way she was presented. Like, there's just stupid shit for no reason. And then, again, like I said, the Tyler theory, that Tyler's the only real person. He invents Jack as a normal cookie-cutter person so that he can, live with himself. It's the inverse of how we actually see Fight Club. No matter what stupid bullshit theories you come up with, people like the film. If they didn't like the film, they wouldn't be sitting there for hours saying, oh, well, the camera panned over at this exact frame, so that means that the character is depressed, They wouldn't do that shit if they didn't care about the film, care about the message, the themes, the characters, the story in general. It speaks to many young people across the globe. Fight Club might not be, the most up-to-date, which is, of course, as expected, it came out 26 years ago. AI is on the rise, it's prevalent, and it's only going to become more and more commonplace in today's world. Well, guess what isn't? Fear of losing your job, fear of being replaced. Again, you are just a number. There's nothing important or special about you. You are not a unique snowflake. See how that works? Now, why did I bring that up? I'm going to throw out some statistics for you. Generation Z, of which I'm a part of, 59% of them think AI will eliminate jobs. More than half of them follow and purchase from influencers, which, again, their commercialization, capitalism, you see a price tag from your favorite person on the internet and you say, oh, well, you know what? I need to buy this product. There's a new thing that just came out. I need to have it. Shit like that. Almost half feel anxious or stressed almost all the time. The cost of living is our greatest concern. Here's a big one. Only 19% of Gen Z consider themselves very happy. So guess what? We're not very happy at all. I wonder why. If you take a broad approach to film overall, there is plenty of films out there that try to tackle this concept. Solitude, loneliness, how people deal with it. But none of them do so in the way Fight Club does. After all, why do you think it's so unique? Tyler and Jack form a support group of their own and invite basically everyone. They say, wow, it's this amazing new thing, you should come check it out, but we're not supposed to talk about it. In a very non-masculine world, men are reclaiming their masculinity by going to these fight clubs. They feel more alive than ever, more in their element. Take Bob, for example. He feels amazing, energized. He's a former wrestler or whatever, right? But he goes to the support group that Jack goes to, and, he's crying, he's fucking upset the entire time, but he starts going to the fight club, right? And he's like, oh, well, you know what, dude? I feel amazing, man. Like, I've been going to this new thing. It's so supportive and helpful, I feel great. Eventually he dies, but, well. And that's something to consider too. Just because a lot of people might view it as healthy or beneficial doesn't mean it actually is, okay? I believe it was in the 1930s or 40s, people believed that smoking was actually beneficial and healthy for people to do. It wasn't. That belief wasn't held for a very long time, okay? Naturally. Just like, what was it? I think it was radium. Around that same time, people would put it in the, clocks and fucking just stupid shit and harm themselves because they thought it looked cool. Okay, people do this shit every single day. It happens today, right? People won't cease to be fucking stupid, and, honestly, it's only getting worse because we egg ourselves on with algorithms. The rampant materialism for validation has, only ascended to further and further heights, like seeing the number of likes you get or the positive comments that urge you to continue doing something self-destructive for no reason other than the viewer's gratification. It might be sexual, it might not be sexual, okay? For example, pay pigs, people that use their abundance of money to, I shouldn't even have to fucking explain it, actually. I saw this one post about someone that encouraged a female content creator. I don't know if it was OnlyFans or what, but he said, oh, well, I'll pay you whatever amount it was. It was some huge amount. She got pennies every day or some shit. He said, hey, I'm going to pay you $100 right now to smoke a cigarette. And he got her hooked on on smoking. That's fucking right there, man. That is a perfect example. So, in pursuit of money, we'll find ourselves doing almost anything to get that money. She could have worked at a regular job. She could have had a respectable career instead of showing her body online. And yet she threw it away because this guy kept throwing hundreds of money to her to smoke cigarettes. You could argue it's her fault because she couldn't have the self-control. I've smoked a handful of times myself, and I haven't felt the need to keep smoking. I've just compared the brands. It sounds kind of fucking silly, but yeah, I mean, I have. I'm just curious, why people do that with their lives, right? And of course, from the other side of the fence, it was easy money. You'd be a fool not to take it. And what about the disenfranchised, the homeless, the people that are very poor, the people that cannot really relate to Jack at all? Well, they might find themselves in the embrace of Marla, the woman who just walks across the lanes of traffic and doesn't give a fuck if they hit her or not, no regard for her life really. That's not the only time in the film she does that either. She calls Jack and like either pretends or is having a fucking suicide attempt, which causes Tyler to come get her, and it goes from there. We see her go to a laundromat and take other people's clothes and pawn them for whatever her purposes are. She might actually need that money to make her rent. She might need it to buy some more fucking buy some booze, some cigarettes, whatever the case may be, right? Later on, we see her taking some people's food, people that have apparently died, so they're not using it anymore, which is basically what she says, okay? But for the record, Marla just isn't doing very well, okay? We could have seen that from the get-go whenever she was going to the support groups. Even if, she doesn't have testicles or she doesn't have cancer or whatever she does or does not have, right? It's the same thing with Jack. If they were normal, well-adjusted people, they wouldn't be going to these groups. I've noticed nobody ever really talks about the soundtrack of Fight Club. It was one of my favorite things about the movie, man. I mean, the Dust Brothers, nobody knows much about them, so... And for the movie, they didn't even really make a soundtrack for the movie. They just took what they had from projects at the time. They knew that they've never done anything like this before, so that's why the soundtrack sounds the way it does. They took any existing projects they had, they scraped it together really, and it's fascinating because once you know that, you can go back and listen to all the tracks and you can hear how one part transitions to another and it's like, wow, what am I listening to? It sets the tone, Jack is a fragmented individual, so is the music. It might sound a little fucked up. Well, so are the characters. What about the comics? Well, reading them was kind of a mess, to be honest with you. It was a wonder the movie came out at all after reading the source material. I mean, goddamn. I guess it helps that Chuck was actually, on set, fucking like working with the producers and the directors and shit to actually make it. But I mean, otherwise, I just don't know, man. It's it just seems to me like it's all over the place. If you read Fight Club 3, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like, goddamn, dude. I don't think another Fight Club sequel is going to happen. The first one is really a cult classic, so that kind of cements my theory. It didn't do very well. It did good. It didn't do very well, so there's not going to be interest to make another one. It ends just fine on its own. Jack and Marla, they recoup their losses, they make up, and Project Mayhem carries through. If you go by the source material, yes, there is more story, but from a filmmaker like company perspective, can we pour millions of dollars into this and expect it to be fucking profitable? Probably not. And I'm saying this as nobody anywhere near qualified. I feel like the original kind of felt like a gamble, a good one, but nonetheless still a gamble. If you can make a film and market your protagonist as relatable, then, well, that's good, right? In my opinion, perspective is one of the most important things there is to have, and you can certainly look at this film from a million different perspectives. Class, identity, struggling with life in general. And it's my firm belief that as the years go on, this film will remain relevant. even if it does become outdated in the physical sense. It touches upon our daily lives, and that's something we'll never really forget.